Great. Loved it.
Yeah, me too. Hey, what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about fighting fair. We've covered this before, but look, it's one that I've got to bring up every now and then in my therapy because couples don't know how to fight fair. And if you're not fighting fair, then it'll very easily escalate. And then every time it escalates, you have an argument. The argument creates disconnect. And once you've got disconnect, then you've got to do a repair job.
A whole bunch of repair, yeah.
So we know what that is. So the way to not have the repair and the disconnect is to stick to the rules of fighting fair.
So when you say fighting fair, what do you mean by fighting fair?
Well, the thing is, every couple's going to have a fight at some point. You're going to have a disagreement.
We had some friends in Melbourne that never fought. Like
that's amazing.
They actually said, well, we've never actually had a fight. But they were both the type of personalities that kind of ran away from...
Oh, yeah, conflict avoiders.
But then we're kind of, at some stage in the future, this is going to blow up. Like, this is going to explode because neither of them, like, they never fight.
Well, that means they were basically agreeable people.
Yeah.
And more or less. But anyway, for normal couples, like you and I.
Average couples. Like us.
Every now and then there's a fight. But we really want to avoid that long disconnect. And we also want to avoid the escalating and people getting angry and upset to the point where they're going to regret what they said the next day, which is what you definitely don't want.
And I'm a words person, so I've had to really tone that down a little bit because I know when we first got married, like, you get to that, everything's kind of ramping up and you're getting frustrated and then you start to say things that you don't even mean. But
That's exactly right.
It's like you want to hurt the other person. And so I've become much better at that in recent years. But early on in my married life, I'm like, what sort of damage did I cause back then,
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
So the rules for fighting fair are, look, number one is don't swear, like no expletives. And so across the board, just don't use them. The other rule is don't label. So don't call your partner, you idiot, or other words that I'd rather not say on air. But basically, don't label, especially don't use expletive type labels. Like, you're going to do a lot of damage if you're going to start using labels and swearing. And they're the things that people often regret the next day. And they're the things that stick to the person.
You remember for a long time.
Yeah, you called me a B and this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Like, you've got to make a choice. I'm not going to do this. The other thing you've got to try and stay away from is superlatives. So those nth degree words, there's two of them. You never or
you always. You always.
You always. And it's interesting because it's most likely not true that's the case. But as soon as we hear you always or you never, it'll straight away we'll get our defences up.
It kind of kills the conversation, doesn't it?
We hear it as a criticism. And if we hear a criticism and we take it personally, we'll get defensive. Now, the other thing, if you can avoid it, is the word but. So you're listening to your partner and you'll go, but. And as soon as you use the word but, the other person's then going to hear you justifying your behaviour somehow.
Well, especially when you go, I'm sorry, but.
That's it.
And I'm like, well, that's not sorry. Like,
you've got it. Those things just don't work.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you've got to do is you've got to stick to the problem. So the people aren't problems. So the person who you're married to is not the problem, but there is a problem behaviour. So what it means, we often have an argument about something that they've done. You've done something wrong or they've done something wrong. You've got to stick to the issue.
Yeah. We had that the other day. Not that it was an argument, but we were talking about something specific. And then I won't... Not that she intentionally meant to do it, but then she starts talking about something else, and then something else. I'm like, can we just focus on what we're talking about right here? Like, this is what we're going to focus on. She's like, yeah, but and like, you just got to focus on that one issue, don't you?
Yeah, try and just focus. I agree with that, and it only takes one person to steer it back, and you do it in an appealing way. So you'll say, you use soft startup word of appeal. Word of endearment and then an appeal, like, darling, look, can we just talk about this issue? I've done that in situations with Joe, and Joe does it with me. Can we just talk to this? Because if we're going to bring other stuff in, like, it's just going to complicate the whole story, and you'll get lost in it. And if you get lost in it, you'll end up arguing about what you're lost in, and that just compounds the problem.
It escalates everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and I, we know we've got it.
After all, you're like, what are we even doing here? Like, this is crazy.
I know. And the thing is, it just escalates, and then you get angry with each other, and you walk away from each other, and then you got to do the repair job, and which can take a little bit longer than other times, depending on how much the other person's hurt. So if that person's hurt, they're really hurt, it's going to take longer to do the repair job and get back together again. So what we've got to do is try and avoid the situations where we've got to do the repair job.
Yeah. And does that mean making some rules around what you do? Like, you mentioned all those things. If you just say, okay, let's agree to these things.
Yes.
Before we start our conversations, so that we can actually have those boundaries in place.
Yeah, what I do with clients sometimes is that I'll write down the rules, and I'll say, look, just take this. Next time you have an argument, so they keep the pieces of paper that I write it on, and just stick to the rules. And I'll guarantee it won't escalate as quick. Because if you both decide, okay, we're not going to swear at each other, we're not going to use labels, we're not going to use those superlatives, never, always. We're going to try and stick to the issue. And the issue is often a behaviour. You've done something or you've said something. They're the two behaviours that we've got. You either do something or say something that didn't suit the other person, and they don't want to talk to you about it. This doesn't work for me.
Yeah. But the issue that I've found is you can so easily become over emotional with these things. So it's really good to say, here are the rules here. But when you start talking about something that means a lot to you and to each of you in your relationship, then it can easily kind of spill over. So you really have to be firm in those rules, don't you?
You do. Actually, what we'll do next week, we'll talk